The security cameras at Mercy General Hospital were supposed to protect patients. Instead, on a rainy Tuesday in November, they recorded a crime so vile it shook the entire city of Seattle. A pregnant woman, confined to bed rest, helpless against a woman in a designer trench coat wielding a leather belt. But the attacker, Jade Vance, made one fatal calculation. She forgot that her victim, Alani, had a father. And Amber Donovan doesn't call the police. He is the punishment. What happens when a retired underworld enforcer finds out his daughter was brutalized? You're about to witness the unthinkable. The rain in Seattle didn't just fall. It hammered against the glass of the VIP suite on the 4th floor of Mercy General Hospital, sounding like 1,000 tiny warnings that no one was listening to. Alani Sterling lay against the sterile white pillows, her face nearly as pale as the sheets. At 7 months pregnant, she was supposed to be glowing. Instead, she was fading. The doctors called it severe preeclampsia, a condition that turned her own body into a cage, spiking her blood pressure to dangerous levels. She was strictly confined to the bed. Standing up wasn't just difficult, it was a risk to the life of the baby girl growing inside her. "Dr. Thorne says my pressure is up again," Alani whispered, her hand resting protectively over the swell of her stomach. Standing by the window, staring out at the grey skyline, was Marcus Sterling. He was handsome in that sharp, manufactured way that money buys. Tailored Italian wool suit, hair swept back with precision, and a posture that screamed arrogance. He checked his Rolex for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. "You worry too much, Elle," Marcus said, not turning around. "Thorne knows what he's doing. I'm paying him enough." "It's not about the money, Marcus. I feel off, and you've been gone so much." Marcus finally turned, his eyes cold. "I'm closing the merger with the Kensington Group, Alani. This deal secures our future, secures her future." He gestured vaguely at her stomach. "I can't sit here holding your hand while the market fluctuates." Alani looked away, fighting back tears. Tears raised her blood pressure. She had to stay calm. But it was hard to stay calm when your husband, the man who promised to protect you, looked at you like you were an inconvenient piece of furniture. 2 years ago, when Alani married Marcus, she thought she had found a savior. She was the daughter of Amber Donovan, a man with a heavy, shadowed past in Boston's union scene, a man who solved problems with his fists so his daughter wouldn't have to. She had moved to the West Coast to escape that life, to find something legitimate and clean. Marcus was a tech investor. He was clean, or so she thought. "I have to go," Marcus said, grabbing his briefcase. "Late dinner meeting with the investors. I won't be back tonight." "Marcus, please, just stay for an hour. I'm scared." "Don't be dramatic, Alani. You have a nurse button. Use it." He didn't kiss her. He didn't touch her stomach. He just walked out the heavy oak door of the suite, leaving a lingering scent of expensive cologne and cold indifference. Alani closed her eyes, listening to the rain. She reached for her phone on the bedside table to call the one person who never made her feel like a burden, her father, Amber. But she hesitated. Amber was old school. If she told him Marcus was being cold, Amber would fly out here and cause a scene. She didn't want violence. She wanted a family. She put the phone down. 10 minutes later, her phone buzzed. It wasn't a call. It was a notification from her bank app, a joint account alert. Transaction, $or $2,500, the Onyx Room, 8:15 p.m. The Onyx Room wasn't a restaurant for investor meetings. It was a high-end lingerie boutique downtown. Alani's heart hammered against her ribs. The monitor beside her bed began to beep faster. Beep, beep, beep. She tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was buying a gift for her. To apologize? But Marcus hadn't bought her lingerie in a year, and certainly not when she was 7 months pregnant and swollen with edema. The door to her hospital room clicked open. Alani looked up, expecting the nurse with her evening medication. It wasn't the nurse. Standing in the doorway was a woman Alani had never met, but instantly recognized from the instinctive pit in her stomach. She was stunning in a terrifying way. Jet black hair, crimson lipstick, and wearing a trench coat that looked like it cost more than the hospital wing. She wasn't holding flowers. She was holding a lit cigarette, indifferent to the oxygen signs on the wall. "So," the woman said, her voice like crushed velvet and broken glass. "This is the wife." "You can't smoke in here," Alani said, her voice trembling. "Who are you?" The woman took a drag, blew the smoke toward the ceiling, and stepped inside, letting the door click shut behind her. She locked it. "I'm Jade," she said, walking toward the bed with the predatory grace of a panther. "Jade Vance. But I think you know me as the Kensington Merger." Alani's breath hitched. "What?" "Marcus tells you he's working on the Kensington deal." Jade laughed, a cruel, dry sound. "Honey, I am the work. I've been the work for 6 months." Alani's hand gripped the bedsheet. "Get out. I'm calling security." She reached for the red button on the rail of her bed. Jade moved faster than anyone in heels should be able to. She slapped Alani's hand away hard, the sound cracking through the quiet room. "Don't touch that," Jade hissed, her face inches from Alani's. "We need to have a chat. Woman to cow." Jade looked Alani up and down, her expression twisting into pure disgust. "Look at you. You're bloated. You're pathetic. Marcus talks about you, you know. He says sleeping with you is like sleeping with a wet sponge. He hates coming here." "He loves me," Alani stammered, tears finally spilling over. "We're having a baby." "A baby?" Jade scoffed. She stood up and began to unbuckle the belt of her trench coat. It was a thick, designer leather belt with a heavy gold buckle. She pulled it off the loops, snapping it between her hands. "That baby is the only reason he hasn't divorced you yet, Alani. He's waiting for the kid to be born so he can take custody and kick you back to whatever trailer park you crawled out of. But me? I'm impatient. I don't like waiting." "What do you want?" Alani sobbed. The heart monitor was racing now, a chaotic rhythm filling the room. Beep, 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 beep. "I want him to be free," Jade said. "And you're the anchor." Jade stepped closer. "He bought me a bracelet tonight. Diamond. Beautiful. But I told him I needed to run an errand. Please," Alani begged, realizing with horror that there was no one to help her. The nurse's station was down the hall. The storm outside masked the noise. "I'm pregnant. Please don't hurt me." "That's exactly why it hurts him. And that's why you'll leave," Jade said. Jade raised the belt. The first strike didn't hit Alani's face. It hit her leg, the heavy leather slashing across her thigh through the thin hospital blanket. Alani screamed, a high-pitched sound of shock and pain. "Shut up!" Jade shrieked. She swung again. This time, the gold buckle caught Alani's shoulder, tearing the hospital gown. Alani curled into a fetal position, desperately covering her stomach with her arms. "Not the baby! Please, not the baby!" she screamed. "Look at you!" Jade yelled, seemingly fueled by the adrenaline of violence. She struck again, the belt whipping down with a sickening crack. "You're weak! You're nothing! You think he wants this? You think he wants a sick, fat wife?" Alani couldn't fight back. She couldn't stand up. Every movement sent waves of dizziness through her head. She was trapped in the bed, a prisoner of her own body. Jade struck her arm, leaving a rising red welt. Then she grabbed Alani's hair, yanking her head back against the pillows. "You're going to file for divorce," Jade hissed, her spit landing on Alani's tear-streaked face. You're going to tell him you lost the baby, or that it's not his. I don't care what you say. But you are going to disappear." Jade raised the belt one more time, aiming for Alani's exposed ribs. Alani closed her eyes and screamed, a primal sound of agony and terror. The belt came down hard. Suddenly, the door handle jiggled, locked. "Ms. Sterling?" A nurse's voice came from the hallway. "Is everything okay?" Jade froze. She looked at the door, then back at Alani. Panic flashed in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a sneer. She leaned down, whispering into Alani's ear. "You tell them you fell. You tell them you had a nightmare. If you mention my name, if you tell Marcus I was here, I know where your mother lives in Boston. I know about your sister in Portland. I will burn your life down." Jade grabbed her purse, shoved the belt back through her coat loops and went to the window. It was a 4th-story suite, but there was a fire escape landing just outside the ledge. She unlatched the window, letting the wind and rain howl into the room. "Remember, Alani, you fell." Jade climbed out into the storm, just as the nurse used a master key to override the lock. The door swung open. The nurse, a young woman named Sarah, gasped. The room was a wreck. The window was open, rain soaking the floor, and Alani was curled in a ball, her gown torn, welts rising on her skin, sobbing uncontrollably as she clutched her belly. "Oh my God!" Sarah yelled, rushing to the bedside. "Code Purple, I need help in 404. We need security." Alani couldn't speak. She could only shake. The pain was physical, yes, but the psychological terror was worse. She knew Marcus wouldn't believe her. He would take Jade's side. He would say Alani was hallucinating from the medication. She was alone. Sarah grabbed Alani's hand. "Who did this? Alani, who did this?" Alani looked at the open window, then at the nurse. She thought of the threat against her family. She stayed silent. But as the doctors rushed in to check the fetal heartbeat, Alani made a decision. She wouldn't call the police. The police needed evidence, and Jade was rich, and Marcus was powerful. They would bury this. She needed an equalizer. As the doctors sedated her to stop the contractions triggered by the stress, Alani whispered one name. "Amber." "Who?" the doctor asked, checking her pupil response. "Call Amber Donovan." 3,000 miles away, in a dimly lit social club in South Boston called the Rusty Anchor, the air smelled of stale beer and old secrets. It was a place where men went to be forgotten, or to remember things they shouldn't. Amber Donovan sat at a corner booth, nursing a black coffee. At 62, he didn't look like a monster. He looked like a grandfather. He wore a grey newsboy cap, a thick wool sweater, and his hands, calloused and scarred, rested quietly on the table. But the men in the room gave him a wide berth. They knew who he was. They knew that in the 1980s and 90s, Amber was the man the mob called when they needed a problem to simply cease existing. They called him the Eraser. He had retired 15 years ago for one reason: Alani. He wanted her to have a life where blood was something you saw only when you scraped your knee, not something you washed off your hands in the kitchen sink. His phone buzzed on the table. It was an unknown number with a Seattle area code. Amber didn't like unknown numbers. He picked it up. "Donovan." "Mr. Donovan?" The voice was shaking. Female, young. "My name is Sarah. I'm a nurse at Mercy General in Seattle. Alani asked me to call you." Amber's spine stiffened. The air in the booth seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Is she alive?" "Yes," Sarah said quickly. "But there was an incident. She's in the high-risk unit. She's hurt, Mr. Donovan. Badly. She claims she fell, but the injuries aren't consistent with a fall. She's terrified. She wouldn't let us call the police. She just kept begging for you." Amber didn't ask what happened. He didn't ask for details. He knew the code. Don't call the police. Call Dad. That meant the threat was personal. That meant the law couldn't fix it. "I'm coming," Amber said. "Don't let anyone in that room except medical staff. Not her husband. Not anyone. Do you understand me?" I can try, but her husband, Marcus, I don't care who he is," Amber interrupted, his voice a low rumble that made the hair on Sarah's arms stand up 3,000 miles away. "If he tries to enter, you tell him her father is on a plane, and he's bringing the old days with him." Amber hung up. He stood, dropping a $20 bill on the table. He walked out of the bar, into the Boston chill. He didn't go home to pack clothes. He went to a small storage unit on the outskirts of the city. Inside, he bypassed the boxes of old tax returns and went to a floor safe in the corner. He dialed the combination. Inside lay a stack of cash, $50,000, and a leather tool roll. He didn't take a gun. Guns were loud. Guns made headlines. Amber preferred tools that encouraged conversation. He took the cash, the tool roll, and a burner phone. 6 hours later, Amber Donovan walked into Mercy General Hospital. He looked like a tired old man from coach class, carrying a duffel bag, but his eyes were scanning everything. The security cameras, the exits, the shift rotation of the guards. When he reached the 4th floor, he found Nurse Sarah at the station. She looked exhausted. "Mr. Donovan?" she asked. Amber nodded. "Where is she?" Sarah led him to room 404. "She's sedated, but waking up. Marcus, her husband, hasn't been here. He called once to say he was busy with a merger closing." Amber's jaw tightened. "Good. Keep him away." Amber entered the room. The lights were dimmed. The sound of the fetal heart monitor was a steady, rhythmic gallop, the only sign of hope in the room. Amber approached the bed. When he saw his daughter, his heart broke, but his face turned into stone. Alani's face was swollen on one side. A dark purple bruise was blossoming on her cheekbone. Her lip was split. But when he gently pulled back the blanket, his rage nearly blinded him. Thick red welts crisscrossed her arms and thighs. The distinct shape of a belt buckle was imprinted on her shoulder. This was a beating, a systematic, hateful beating. Alani stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, groggy and swollen. When she saw the silhouette of the man standing over her, she flinched, letting out a small whimper of fear. "It's me, Elle," Amber whispered, his voice softer than it had been in years. "It's Dad." Alani blinked, focusing. When she realized it was him, the dam broke. She didn't scream, she just wept, a silent, heaving sobbing that shook the bed. Amber sat on the edge of the bed and pulled her into his arms, careful of her injuries. He held her while she cried, rocking her like she was 5 years old again. "I'm here," he said. "I'm here." "She said she'd kill you," Alani whispered into his chest. "She said she'd burn everything down." Amber pulled back, looking into her eyes. "Who, Alani? I need a name." "Jade," Alani choked out. "Jade Vance, Marcus's mistress." Amber memorized the name. "Jade Vance." "And Marcus?" Amber asked. "Did he do this?" "No," Alani said. "But he knows she's unstable. He left me here, Dad. He left me." Amber nodded slowly. He kissed her forehead. "Rest now, Elle. Focus on the baby. The world outside this room, that's my department now." Amber stood up. He walked to the window, the same window Jade had escaped from. He looked at the latch. He looked at the floor. He saw a faint, muddy footprint on the linoleum that the cleaners had missed. He took a picture of it with his phone. Then, Amber Donovan walked out of the hospital room. He didn't look like a father anymore. He looked like a hunter who had just caught the scent of blood. Seattle was a city of tech money and glass towers, a world away from the gritty docks of Boston. Amber felt out of place, but that was an advantage. No one looked at the old man in the wool sweater. They looked right through him. Amber spent the afternoon doing what he did best, gathering intelligence. He didn't need the internet. He needed leverage. He started at the parking garage of the hospital. He slipped $100 to the parking attendant. "Tuesday night," Amber said, showing a picture of the generic type of car a mistress might drive. Flashy, expensive. "Did you see a woman? Tall, dark hair, trench coat, left in a hurry?" The attendant, eyeing the cash, nodded. "Yeah, red Porsche. She nearly ran over the gate arm. I remember the plate because it was a custom vanity plate. Vance." Simple, arrogant. Next, Amber went to the registry of deeds, public records. Jade Vance, 4200 Highland Drive, a penthouse overlooking the Sound. But Amber didn't go to her house. Not yet. The psychological game had to come first. He needed to know the dynamic between the husband and the mistress. He checked Marcus Sterling's social media, or rather, the company's public feed. Sterling Tech merger celebration. Tonight. 8 p.m., the height of luxury at Le Sommet. Le Sommet was the most expensive restaurant in the city. At 8:15 p.m., Amber walked into Le Sommet. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing his clean, dark slacks and a button-down shirt that looked affordable but neat. The hostess looked at him with polite disdain. "Do you have a reservation, sir?" "No," Amber said calmly. "I'm here to return a wallet to Mr. Marcus Sterling. I believe he dropped it at the hospital." The hostess hesitated. Marcus was their VIP guest tonight. "I can take it to him." "It has cash in it," Amber said, patting his pocket. "I'd prefer to hand it to him personally. It'll only take a moment. I'm an old family friend." Something about Amber's eyes, flat, unblinking, made the hostess decide not to argue. She pointed toward the private dining area in the back. Amber walked through the restaurant, the clinking of silverware, the soft jazz, the laughter of the wealthy. It all sounded like noise to him. He found the table. It was a celebration, all right. Marcus Sterling sat at the head of the table, holding a glass of champagne. He was laughing, and sitting right next to him, wearing a backless black dress that showed off her toned arms, was Jade Vance. She was touching his arm, whispering something that made him smile. The man whose wife was lying in a hospital bed, beaten and traumatized, was toasting the woman who held the belt. Amber didn't yell. He didn't flip the table. He walked up behind Marcus and placed a heavy hand on his shoulder. Marcus turned, annoyed. "Excuse me, we are in the middle of a—" He stopped. He recognized the eyes. He had only met Amber once, at the wedding, and he had dismissed him as a washed-up blue-collar nobody. But seeing him here, out of context, was jarring. "Amber," Marcus said, his voice confused. "What are you doing here?" The table went quiet. Jade looked up, her eyes narrowing. She didn't know who Amber was. She just saw an old man interrupting her victory lap. "Who is this, Marcus?" Jade asked, taking a sip of her wine. Amber ignored her. He kept his hand on Marcus's shoulder, squeezing slightly, just enough to hit the nerve cluster near the neck. Marcus winced, trying to pull away, but Amber's grip was like a vice. "I visited Alani today," Amber said. His voice was conversational, almost pleasant. Marcus turned pale. Is the baby okay?" "The baby is fighting," Amber said. "Alani is fighting. But she looks terrible, Marcus. She looks like she went 12 rounds with a prize fighter." "It's the preeclampsia," Marcus said quickly, glancing nervously at his investors around the table. "She's very sick. Amber, we can talk about this later. This is a business dinner." "Is it?" Amber looked at Jade. He looked at the diamond bracelet on her wrist. He looked at the way her leg was draped over Marcus's under the table. "And who is this?" Amber asked. "I'm his business partner," Jade said, her voice sharp. "And you are rude. Security?" She waved her hand for a waiter. Amber smiled. It was a terrifying smile. It didn't reach his eyes. "Business partner?" Amber repeated. He leaned down, bringing his face close to Marcus's ear. "Alani told me about the fall, Marcus. She told me how clumsy she was." Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He thought the lie had held. Yes, it was a terrible accident. She fainted. Amber released Marcus's shoulder. He patted him on the back, hard. "Accidents happen," Amber said, loud enough for the whole table to hear. "The world is a dangerous place. Stairs, windows, belts." Jade froze. Her wine glass paused halfway to her lips. She stared at Amber. The mention of the belt was specific. It was a message. Amber locked eyes with Jade. For 10 seconds, nobody moved. Amber let her see the darkness in him. He let her see the man who used to make people disappear in the Boston harbor. "I just wanted to say hello," Amber said, "and to tell you that I'm staying in town until the baby is born. I'll be taking care of Alani's security personally from now on." Amber reached into his pocket. He didn't pull out a wallet. He pulled out a single, long roofing nail. It was rusty. He set it gently on the white tablecloth next to Jade's plate. "I found this near your car," Amber lied smoothly. "You should be careful where you drive, Miss Vance. You never know what's waiting in the road." He turned and walked away. The table was silent. "What the hell was that?" one of the investors asked. Marcus was shaking. He knew Amber was threatening them, but he didn't know how much he knew. Jade, however, was furious. She stared at the rusty nail on the pristine tablecloth. She wasn't scared. She was insulted. She was the daughter of a senator, a wealthy socialite. Who was this old mechanic to threaten her? "Excuse me," Jade said, standing up. "I need to use the powder room." She grabbed her purse and followed Amber out. She caught him in the lobby of the restaurant. "Hey!" she shouted. "Old man!" Amber stopped and turned. They were alone in the marble hallway near the coat check. "You think you can walk in here and intimidate me?" Jade hissed, stepping into his personal space. "I know who you are, Alani's trashy father. Let me tell you something. Marcus is done with her. She's a vessel for his heir, and that's it. Once that brat is born, she's out." Amber looked at her with a calm curiosity, like a scientist studying a virus. "You beat a pregnant woman with a belt, Jade." "She needed to be taught a lesson," Jade spat, her arrogance overriding her survival instinct. "She wouldn't let go. I made her let go. And if you get in my way, I'll have you arrested for harassment. Do you know who my family is?" Amber took a step closer. He towered over her. "I don't care who your family is," Amber whispered. "But you should call them. Tell them you love them." "Is that a threat?" "No," Amber said. "It's advice. Because from this moment on, Jade, you are not living a life anymore. You are living on borrowed time." Amber turned to the exit. "Walk away!" Jade screamed after him. "Go back to your nursing home." Amber walked out into the Seattle rain. He took a deep breath. He had confirmed it. She had no remorse. She was a sadist, and Marcus was a coward who let it happen. The investigation was over. The punishment phase was about to begin. Amber took out his burner phone and dialed a number from his past. A man who now ran a salvage yard in Tacoma. "Mickey," Amber said when the line picked up. "It's the ghost. I need a car. Something fast, heavy, and stolen. And I need a location for a private conversation. Soundproof." "I got you, Artie," the voice crackled. "Who's the target?" 2 of them, Amber said, watching through the restaurant window as Jade returned to the table, laughing, tossing the rusty nail into an ashtray. I'm going to teach them the difference between pain and suffering. 3 days later, the rain had stopped, leaving Seattle under a blanket of suffocating grey fog. Amber had been busy. He hadn't been back to the hospital, communicating with Nurse Sarah only via text to ensure Alani remained safe and isolated. Visitor restrictions strict, he had ordered. Tell Marcus the doctors suspect a viral infection. No visitors allowed, not even him. It was a stall tactic, and it worked. Marcus, relieved to not have to face the guilt of seeing his battered wife, stayed away, burying himself in work, which mostly meant long lunches with Jade. Amber sat in the stolen sedan, a heavy, nondescript Lincoln Town car with mismatched plates, parked down the street from Jade's penthouse. He watched her pattern. 10 m, gym. 12:09 p.m, lunch at the pier. 2:30 p.m, spa. She lived a life of leisure, funded by family money and Marcus's corporate theft. Today, however, the routine changed. At 7:00 p.m, Marcus pulled up to the building in his silver Audi. He went up. An hour later, they both came out, dressed for a gala. They got into Marcus's car. Amber followed. They drove north, out of the city, toward a private estate in the hills where the Tech Innovators Charity Ball was being held. The road was winding, flanked by dense pine forests and steep drop-offs. No street lights, just the cat eyes on the road, reflecting their headlights. Amber knew this road. He had scouted it yesterday. About 5 miles from the estate, there was a blind curve known for accidents. Amber accelerated. The Lincoln's V8 engine roared to life. He wasn't going to ram them off the cliff. That was messy, and he didn't want them dead. Not yet. He pulled up alongside the Audi on a straight stretch. Marcus looked over, confused by the aggressive driving of the old sedan. Amber rolled down his window. He was wearing a ski mask. He pointed a finger at Marcus, a gun shape, and then swerved hard towards them. Marcus panicked. He jerked the wheel to the right. The Audi's tires lost traction on the damp asphalt. The car spun, skidding sideways across the gravel shoulder and slamming nose first into a drainage ditch. Airbags deployed with a dusty poof. Steam hissed from the radiator. Amber pulled the Lincoln over 50 yards ahead, blocking the road. He killed the engine. The silence of the forest returned, broken only by the hissing of the Audi. He walked back toward the wreck, carrying a tire iron. He reached the driver's side. Marcus was groaning, blood trickling from his nose. Jade was screaming in the passenger seat, clutching her chest. "My dress! You ruined my dress!" she shrieked, seemingly more concerned with silk than safety. Amber smashed the driver's side window with one efficient swing of the iron. Glass shattered over Marcus. "Get out," Amber commanded, his voice muffled by the mask. Marcus scrambled out, hands up. "Take the wallet, take the watch, just don't shoot." Amber grabbed Marcus by the collar of his tuxedo and threw him onto the muddy ground. "Get her out," Amber pointed at Jade. Marcus hesitated. Amber swung the tire iron, stopping an inch from Marcus's knee. Marcus yelped and scrambled to open the passenger door. He dragged a hysterical Jade out of the car. "Who are you?" Jade screamed. "Do you know who we are?" Amber ripped the mask off. The moonlight hit his face. The cold, hard lines of a father who had seen his daughter's bruises. Marcus gasped. "Amber!" Jade went silent. Her eyes widened in recognition. The old man from the restaurant. "I told you," Amber said calmly. "The road is a dangerous place." "You're crazy," Marcus stammered, backing away. "This is assault, kidnapping. I'll have you buried." "You tried to bury my daughter," Amber said, stepping forward. You let this woman treat her like a punching bag because you were too weak to end a marriage like a man." "It wasn't like that," Marcus pleaded. "I didn't know she was going to hurt her. I wasn't there." "Ignorance is not an alibi," Amber growled. He looked at Jade. She was trembling now, the cold reality setting in. This wasn't a socialite squabble. This was street justice. "And you," Amber said to Jade. "You like belts." Amber reached into the deep pocket of his coat. He pulled out the belt. The belt! He had retrieved it from the hospital room floor where Jade had dropped it in her haste, hidden under the bed. It still had the faint, dark stain of Alani's blood on the leather. Jade let out a strangled sob. "No! Please!" Amber tossed the belt onto the muddy ground between them. "Pick it up!" Amber ordered Marcus. "What?" Marcus stared at the belt. "Pick it up!" Amber raised the tire iron. Marcus scrambled to grab the belt. His hands were shaking so hard the heavy gold buckle rattled. "She beat your wife with that," Amber said, his voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. "She beat your unborn child with that, while you were buying her diamond bracelets." Amber pointed at a large oak tree a few feet away. "Tie her to the tree." "No!" Jade screamed, trying to run. Amber didn't run. He just swung the tire iron into the back of Marcus's legs, not to break, but to drop him. Marcus collapsed. "If she runs," Amber said to Marcus, "I break your kneecaps, both of them. You'll never walk into a boardroom again." Marcus, sobbing with fear and pain, scrambled up. He grabbed Jade. "Marcus, don't you dare!" Jade shrieked, clawing at his face. "My father will kill you." "He's going to cripple me, Jade," Marcus yelled back, his survival instinct kicking in. He overpowered her, dragging her to the tree. He used the belt, her own belt, to strap her hands around the rough bark of the oak. She was trapped, bound by the instrument of her own cruelty. Amber watched, impassive. "Good," Amber said. He walked over to Jade. She was hyperventilating, her mascara running down her face. She looked pathetic. Not powerful, just a bully who had lost her advantage. "I'm not going to hit you," Amber said. "I'm not you." Jade looked up, hopeful. "But I am going to make sure everyone knows what you are." Amber pulled out a digital voice recorder. He pressed play. Click. It was a recording from the hospital room. Amber had placed a small bug in the floral arrangement he had sent to Alani's room the day he arrived, just in case they returned. They hadn't, but the bug had picked up a phone call Alani made to her sister, recounting the attack in detail. Alani's voice, sobbing. "She used a belt, Sarah. She laughed while she did it. She said Marcus wanted me gone. She said I was a wet sponge." The recording echoed in the silent forest. Marcus looked at Jade with horror. He hadn't known the specifics. He hadn't known she laughed. "You laughed?" Marcus whispered. "She's lying!" Jade screamed. Amber put the recorder away. "I have photos, Marcus. Photos of what your mistress did to your wife. And I have this recording." Amber stepped back. "Here is the deal," Amber said. "You are going to drive yourself to the police station. You are going to turn yourselves in. Jade, for aggravated assault and attempted murder. Marcus, for conspiracy." "Conspiracy?" Marcus choked. "I didn't conspire." "If you don't turn yourselves in," Amber said, "I release the photos and the audio to the press, to your board of directors, to your investors, to Jade's father." Amber paused. "The Kensington merger? It'll be dead by morning. Your stock will be worthless. You will be pariahs. You won't just go to jail, you'll go to jail broke and hated. Or," Amber continued, "you go to the cops. You confess. You say you had a mental break. You try to plead it down. Maybe you save the company. Maybe." It was a lie, of course. Amber knew the company was doomed either way, but he needed them to choose their own destruction. "You have 1 hour," Amber said. "If I don't see a news alert that you've been booked, I upload the files." Amber turned to walk back to his car. "Wait," Marcus yelled. "How do we get there? The car is wrecked." Amber didn't look back. "Walk. It'll give you time to think about what kind of man you are." Amber got into the Lincoln and drove away, leaving them shivering in the dark, in the mud, bound to a tree by a belt of gold and leather. Amber didn't trust them. He knew men like Marcus. They always thought they could buy their way out. Amber drove straight to the hospital. He needed to secure the most important asset, Alani. When he arrived, the atmosphere on the 4th floor had changed. Nurses were whispering. Security was tighter. He found Sarah at the station. She looked pale. "Mr. Donovan," she said, rushing to him. "Marcus called. He called the hospital administration. He's claiming you kidnapped him. He's claiming you're dangerous. Police are on their way here to arrest you." Amber wasn't surprised. Marcus had chosen the third option. Try to destroy the threat. He underestimated the old man. "Is Alani okay?" "She's fine, but they're going to bar you from the room." Amber nodded. "That's fine. Sarah, I need you to do one thing for me. Do you have that email address for the reporter at the Seattle Times? The one who covers healthcare scandals?" Sarah's eyes widened. "Yes. Send her the Dropbox link I'm about to text you, and tell her to check her inbox in 5 minutes." Amber walked down the hall to Alani's room. A security guard stepped in front of him. "Sir, you need to leave." Amber raised his hands. "I'm going. Just let me say goodbye to my daughter." The guard hesitated, then stepped aside. 2 minutes. Amber entered. Alani was awake, sitting up. She looked better. The swelling had gone down slightly. "Dad?" she asked. "What's happening?" "It's over, Elle," Amber said, taking her hand. Marcus made his choice. He tried to fight dirty. "What did you do?" "I gave him a chance to be a human being. He declined." Amber kissed her hand. "I might have to go away for a little while. The police will want to ask me questions about a traffic accident." "Dad, no, don't worry. I'm a ghost, remember. But you are going to be free. I promise." Amber left the room just as 2 police officers stepped off the elevator. "Amber Donovan," one officer shouted. "Stop right there." Amber stopped. He smiled. He held out his hands. "I'm unarmed, officers. Just an old man visiting his sick daughter." As they handcuffed him, Amber's phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a news alert. "Breaking news. Shocking abuse. Allegations rock Sterling Tech. Leaked audio and photos reveal brutal assault of CEO's pregnant wife by prominent socialite Jade Vance. Sources say Marcus Sterling attempted to cover up the crime." Amber chuckled as they led him away. The upload in 1 hour threat was a bluff. He had set a dead man's switch. If he didn't cancel it, the files went public automatically. By the time Marcus and Jade managed to flag down a passing truck and get back to the city, their world had already burned to the ground. Jade's father, the senator, issued a statement disowning her actions before she even reached the precinct. The Sterling Tech board called an emergency meeting to oust Marcus. But the real drama happened in the interrogation room. The precinct house was chaotic, a fluorescent-lit theater for the swift collapse of status and privilege. The news alerts were flying so fast they sounded like a swarm of angry wasps on the detectives' phones. Marcus Sterling sat in interrogation room B, shivering less from the cold air conditioning and more from the sheer, sudden poverty of control. Across the hall, in room C, Jade Vance had completely disintegrated. The moment she realized Marcus wasn't going to save her, that he was already throwing her under the proverbial bus, claiming she was a manic stalker, Her socialite composure evaporated, leaving behind a terrified, petulant child. "He told me to do it!" Jade shrieked, slamming her small, manicured fists on the metal table. Her hair, once perfectly coiffed for the gala, was matted with mud and sweat. "He kept telling me that Alani was stalling, that she was going to ruin his career if she didn't get rid of the baby and sign the divorce papers. He said he couldn't touch her because of the cameras, so I had to do the dirty work." Detective Ramirez, a woman who had seen the worst of Seattle's corporate depravity, leaned back in her chair, watching Jade's tantrum with weary detachment. "So Mr. Sterling told you to commit aggravated assault on his pregnant wife? He commissioned it. He said it was necessary due diligence. He drove me there. He paid for the belt," Jade wailed, her narrative flipping entirely from denial to full-blown self-preservation through maximum incrimination. He was so desperate for the Kensington merger capital, he was going to lose everything. He said if the baby died, the prenuptial agreement was null and void, and he could keep the trust. Ramirez made a note. Motive: financial, coupled with attempted prenatal homicide. The case just got upgraded. Meanwhile, Marcus was spinning a frantic, self-serving web that was already catching him by the throat. "I am the victim here, detective," Marcus insisted, his voice cracking with indignant fear. "This is clearly a hostile takeover, orchestrated by Amber Donovan. He is a known Boston mobster. I was trying to keep the peace. He's using my sick wife and my mistress's unstable tendencies to steal my company. Kidnapping. That's what this is. He attacked us on the road." Detective Smith, a younger, more cynical man, placed a printed photo on the table. It was a close-up of Alani's lacerated shoulder, the distinct pattern of the belt buckle clearly visible. "Mr. Sterling," Smith said slowly, "this assault happened before your alleged kidnapping. You went to dinner with the perpetrator, knowing your wife was in ICU. You didn't report the crime. You covered it up, and we have Miss Vance's statement, currently naming you as the mastermind." "She's lying! She's mentally ill!" Marcus shouted, lunging forward. Smith didn't flinch. "We also have records of a joint account transaction, $4,500 at the Onyx Room, a high-end lingerie boutique. The purchase was made minutes before Ms. Vance arrived at the hospital. A transaction for a specific, thick leather belt with a large gold buckle, matching the markings on Ms. Sterling's body." The air went out of Marcus. He stared at the receipt, a mundane piece of paper that had just sealed his ruin. He hadn't realized the store kept such detailed transaction logs. He thought he had just bought an expensive accessory. He had bought a weapon, and worse, a digital trail of evidence. He had purchased the instrument of his downfall using his own money. "I want my lawyer," Marcus whispered, burying his face in his hands. "Your lawyer resigned an hour ago, Mr. Sterling." Smith repeated the harsh truth Amber had predicted. Sterling Tech stock tanked 60% this morning when the story broke wide. Your firm's assets are frozen, pending the fraud and embezzlement investigation, which, by the way, was opened anonymously 6 months ago. We have a public defender waiting for you. Marcus finally understood the depth of the disaster. Amber hadn't just punched him in the face. He had dismantled his entire life, piece by digital piece. The public defender meant bankruptcy. The embezzlement probe meant jail time long before the assault charges even reached trial. The final blow came when Detective Ramirez, finished with Jade, walked in and placed another document on the table. "Mr. Sterling, you're also being charged with obstruction of justice. Your alleged kidnapping claim against Mr. Donovan. We have surveillance footage of him entering the hospital and being taken into custody by uniformed officers, placing him far away from your crash site. The fact that you drove yourself to the police station after the kidnapping makes your story less than credible." Amber's trap had closed perfectly. He hadn't had to use excessive force. He only had to apply enough pressure to make his targets destroy themselves. Marcus and Jade, in their frantic effort to escape the legal threat, had only tightened the knot. 3 days later, a new dawn. The Seattle fog finally lifted, revealing a crystalline winter sky. The city looked clean, scrubbed of its shadows. In room 404 at Mercy General, the atmosphere was a world away from the violence that had marred it. Alani was propped up in bed, looking weak but radiating a calm, profound strength. She was holding a small bundle wrapped in a pristine white blanket. Her preeclampsia was under control, and the trauma had finally subsided enough for her to give birth to her daughter. "She's tiny, Elle." Dr. Thorne smiled, checking the baby's vitals. "But she's strong. Fighter's heart. Just like her mother." Alani looked down at the infant's perfect wrinkled face. She had named her Hope. The door opened. Amber Donovan walked in. He looked tired but carried himself with the quiet satisfaction of a man whose conscience, surprisingly, was clear. His disorderly conduct charge was gone. His high-powered East Coast lawyer had painted him as a traumatized, overzealous father, a narrative the public widely accepted. "Hey, Grandpa." Alani smiled, her voice thick with emotion. Amber approached the bed and stopped. He looked at the baby for a long time. He hadn't just saved his daughter, he had secured this future. He gently touched the baby's forehead, his rough finger dwarfing the delicate skin. "She's beautiful, Elle," Amber whispered, his eyes betraying a rare, soft vulnerability. "Just beautiful." "The doctor said the stress almost killed her," Alani said, tears welling in her eyes. But she held on. She knew she had a strong grandfather to protect her. Amber nodded, swallowing hard. Is he really gone, Dad?" "Marcus is gone," Amber confirmed, his voice returning to its familiar, low register. "He's denied bail. Jade is in isolation, too. They're facing multiple felonies. They won't see the light of day for a long time." Alani's relief was palpable, but a shadow of financial anxiety crossed her face. "But the company, Dad?" "Marcus always said I was entitled to nothing if the merger failed. The Sterling Tech stock is worthless. How will I raise her? I have nothing." Amber pulled a chair up to the bedside and leaned in conspiratorially. He pulled a thick, legal-sized envelope from his coat pocket. "About that," Amber said, with a slight, almost imperceptible smile. "You remember how desperate Marcus was for the Kensington Group merger? He said it was the only thing that could save his company, right? He was running on fumes, Elle. Embezzlement, hidden debts, terrible management." Alani nodded, confused. "Well," Amber continued, "when you first mentioned this Kensington Group 6 months ago, I made some calls. I have friends in investment banking, the kind of friends who don't ask questions about the source of the capital. I had them set up a holding company, and quietly, over the last half-year, that holding company bought up the majority of the Kensington Group's outstanding debt." He paused for dramatic effect, letting the weight of the realization sink in. Marcus was negotiating with a firm owned, indirectly, by me. He was desperate to sell Sterling Tech to me, believing he was selling it to a nameless, faceless equity firm. He was too arrogant to do the thorough due diligence and find the true beneficial owner. Amber handed her the envelope. Alani pulled out the documents. They were legal deeds of sale and ownership transfer. The buyer of record for Kensington Group was listed as the Hope Sterling Trust. Alani stared at the name, then at her baby, then back at her father. You bought the company he was trying to merge with?" "I didn't just buy the company," Amber said, his eyes glittering with triumph. "I bought the leverage, When the news of the assault broke, my investment team, operating as Kensington, activated the moral turpitude clause in the merger agreement. It stipulated that if the CEO, Marcus Sterling, was charged with a major felony related to the company's integrity or moral standing, Kensington could seize 100% of Sterling Tech's assets for a fraction of the market price. He tapped the document. Marcus signed that clause last week. He signed his life away, and he never saw the clause coming because he was too busy trying to ruin yours. Amber leaned back, his work complete. Sterling Tech is now wholly owned by the Hope Sterling Trust. The headquarters, the patents, the multi-million-dollar portfolio. It's all yours, Alani. The house you hate, it's yours. The bank accounts, once unfrozen, belong to the trust. He is going to prison knowing that his wife, whom he beat, and his daughter, whom he wished dead, are living in his house, controlling his fortune, and running his company. It was a total, absolute reversal of fortune. Marcus had sought to destroy his wife's life to secure his wealth. Instead, his wife's father had used that same greedy desire to legally and systematically strip him of every single asset he possessed. Alani buried her face in her father's shoulder, sobbing with overwhelming relief. You didn't just save me, Dad. You gave us a future. That's what fathers do, Amber said simply, stroking her hair. You wanted to escape the darkness, Alani. I made sure that when you came out into the sunlight and you owned the field. Amber stood up and walked to the window, watching the city sparkle under the rare Seattle sun. Marcus always wanted to be an emperor, Amber said, the sound of his voice cold and final. He forgot one thing. An emperor of a collapsed kingdom is still an emperor of nothing. And he forgot the first rule of power. Never underestimate the quiet guy in the corner who doesn't need a spotlight to see in the dark. He turned back to his daughter, now a single mother, now a CEO. Now, Amber said, pulling his cap down over his eyes. Who's hungry? I know a place that makes a hell of a coffee and a Danish. I think a new CEO deserves breakfast. Alani laughed, a genuine, joyful sound that hadn't been heard in that room in weeks. It was the sound of a woman who was not only free, but immensely powerful. The nightmare was over. Amber Donovan, the ghost from Boston, had done the unthinkable. He had delivered justice, not just through punishment, but through absolute surgical restoration. He hadn't sought revenge. He had merely corrected the balance sheet of life. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how the hunter became the prey. Marcus Sterling and Jade Vance thought they were untouchable, protected by wealth and arrogance. They thought Alani was just a wet sponge to be discarded. But they forgot one crucial variable: Amber Donovan. In the end, Marcus received 15 years for conspiracy and embezzlement. Jade Vance was sentenced to 8 years for aggravated assault. And Alani? She renamed the company Donovan Solutions and focuses on security tech for hospitals. If you enjoyed this story of twisted justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story. And share this video with a friend who loves a good revenge thriller. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there. You never know who's watching.
For watching.